Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of RotoWire TV. I am the elephant in the room, Mike Gottlieb, and this is Andrew Laird, the man who can dunk on any play school basketball set, as you can see in his background there. So, Andrew, first of all, hello. Well, long time no see. How's everything going?
Everything's good. I got some crap the last time for not having an appropriate background, so I decided to take my son's mini hoop out, and who we have for now.
Perfect. Perfect. It's basically how LeBron plays in real life, and that's how
Okay.
Laird plays in his room there.
That's right.
So let's go into the World Cup. So the World Cup is over. Germany victorious yesterday, 1-0 in the 103rd minute, or 113th minute, excuse me. Yeah, 13. It was a little later. But I want to go over just a couple things from the World Cup and translate it over to fantasy as well for leagues worldwide, not necessarily just the Premier League. So first, before we go into specific players that I want to talk about, I just want your impressions of something that you've learned from the World Cup. Are there any trends that you saw that can possibly carry over to the Premier League, for example?
Well, the easy link there is just automatically going to Manchester United with Louis van Gaal, with what he was able to do with the Dutch, because it was weird. They were almost like two different teams. They scored at will at the beginning, thrashing Spain just right at the start. And then they got a little more defensive, and I don't really think that's the team that he wants to bring to Manchester United. He obviously is more of a high-scoring coach in terms of how he was winning early on, and I think that's what they'll try to focus on at first. I don't know how much we can really learn from national teams in terms of league play, just because these guys really, this is the longest they've ever played together in a consistent month like this in probably about 4 years. You get some guys from the Confederations Cup and in Euros on the off years, but they just don't play enough. They don't train with each other day in and day out. The coaches are all different. So overall, I really don't know if you can learn a ton from these guys. I would expect a lot of the other coaches to find new jobs just based on how they did in the tournament. But I think we get more player knowledge than we do team knowledge. Just because those guys get back to their clubs and now they have this under their belt. Like you said, we don't get into names yet. We'll get that later, but I'm not sure personally how much we can learn just from watching national teams and then these guys getting back to their clubs.
Yeah, something that I saw specifically actually with Holland was the usage of 5-3-2 or 3-5-2, however you want to classify the wingbacks. And I feel that more teams, actually Mexico used 5-3-2 as well, and they were very successful at it, especially teams that like to counterattack. The 5-3-2, which, on defense, then on offense, the shape looks like 3-5-2, where they flood the midfield, but specifically the two-striker approach versus the one-striker approach. It infuriates me to no end how many teams use a one-striker approach, which basically means a day off for the center backs. So is there something that you can see? I mean, do you feel like might be a coach that looks at these formations and is like, oh, we can maybe if we want to counterattack, we can actually flood the midfield and actually play fewer players back and then actually have another forward there? Or is it just a national team thing that not a lot of people see us all the time, so we're doing something different because we can get away with it?
I think we're actually seeing a little more of the two-striker set from last year. Liverpool certainly showed that it can work pretty well. Man City did it early in the season, and then when Aguero got hurt, Negredo just kind of disappeared, and then they played Dzeko up front by himself, which is kind of what he played with in the World Cup too. But I think it takes the coach to just say, hey, we're just going to outscore these guys, and a lot of coaches try to keep their job by just getting points here and points there, and so you put yourself in a lot of risk with the two-striker set, and you have to have the appropriate guys in the back, and not everybody does. Liverpool consequently didn't, which is why they won. And the Dutch sort of pulled it off. Ron Vlaar looked great at the end of the tournament, but he was a little questionable early on. And it may have been that he just wasn't challenged that much because they were smoking teams at the beginning. But I would love to see more two-striker sets. I tend to watch more Arsenal games than anyone else, and it infuriates me that they didn't do that. I liked having Giroud and Podolski up top, not throwing Podolski out on the wing, but I liked when they were both attacking, and it happened so rarely, and it was right at the end of the season that they started doing it. Your Blues tend to not do that either.
They don't.
I don't see them doing it this year either. even with Diego Costa coming in. I don't think you're going to see a lot of Costa Torres lineups there. So I wish more coaches would see that and say, yeah, we should try that out. But I think ultimately it takes the right guys in the back and, frankly, the right guys in the front. PSG does it with Ibrahimovic and Cavani, and it certainly works when they're playing in France. But you got to have the right guys, and not everybody has the right guys.
Yeah, and in Chelsea, I don't see a front line of Spanish disappointment. And if they can get Roberto Soldado, they'll fill out the entire front three.
Right.
But you spoke of Ron Vlaar, and actually now let's start getting into the next question that I have, and it's the big one that a lot of people ask. So who increased their value during the World Cup? I famously said before the World Cup that Christian Benteke had the most money to gain, and then what does he do? Gets injured, not playing in the entire tournament. And then I also said Marco Reus, same thing, if he wants to seal his transfer fee, which would be very, very large, that he can have a very good World Cup. He gets injured, he's done for the World Cup. So I stopped saying that. But now that the World Cup is over, who, when they played, increased their value the most? I want to start with a guy we've already mentioned in Ron Vlaar for Holland, and he's currently rumored to be getting an extension at Aston Villa. So do you feel that there might be another team that swoops in for him, or is there just he's just going to be the same old at Aston Villa?
I'm actually going to think he's going same old, only because I feel like with international soccer, if somebody even whispers something about another team, all of a sudden it's all over the papers, like, oh, he's going here, it's a done deal. And the only thing I've seen about Vlaar is really that he's getting this extension, so it's almost like they want to make it clear, like, we're not selling him, we're going to give him more, and we're going to keep him here. He's a fine defender. I wouldn't, from a fantasy perspective, he's not a humongous contributor, which is sort of the where you start to see the differences between real soccer and fantasy soccer.
Yeah.
He's worth keeping around, surely, but if somebody's going to come in with a huge offer, I don't see any reason to stick to their guns and keep him for no reason other than we want to keep him.
Yeah, Ron Vlaar will not be taking penalties anytime soon for any team out there. No. That I can guarantee.
Yeah, I was glad that Van Gaal was questioned about that immediately, because I was also, and when I did the clean sheet previews with Nick Pittner, we were talking about whether he should get the credit for the Tim Krul substitution before the Costa Rica shootout, and it was one of those that, like, maybe I'm wrong. I don't think I am, but I feel like these things are more random than anything else. I mean, goalies kind of admit that they're guessing, so it's like, just because Krul happened to guess correctly twice, does that mean it was like some fantastic move? And if it didn't work, was he going to get blasted or not? And I'm glad that he at least took some heat from putting Vlaar out there for the first penalty after they had so much success against Costa Rica in the last one.
Yeah. So I mean, the only so I'll speak for the goalkeepers union. One reason why you would put a goalie in the shootout is that the goalkeeping coach can go over the numbers of the likely penalty takers and then which side they tend to go. And since Krul is a little bigger, then you can understand that it may make a little bit of a difference. And then you also saw, against Argentina, Holland's goalkeeper he had a solid hand on both of the on two attempts, and both of them still went in the net. So it stinks that Van Gaal opened up himself for that kind of criticism, because they actually overall, I think tactically he did very well. But there still begs the question, why, if he had still had that sub at the end, would he have used Krul again? So, but let's move on. I don't want to stick on Holland too much, but a guy who's rumored to be going pretty much anywhere at this point is Juan Cuadrado. He is currently on Fiorentino, played for Colombia. He's on the right side. He can be a winger or a midfielder. Here's a guy who set up a lot of goal-scoring opportunities for James Rodriguez, who we'll also talk about in a little bit. But Juan Cuadrado, what are your thoughts?
I've seen just really big names linked to him. Bayern Munich, Barcelona, Arsenal were the latest ones that I've seen. Fiorentina has sort of said, if he wants to stick around, we'll keep him. And obviously they're going to say that, but they actually really haven't said anything like, here's a new contract, we'd like to double your pay. So it's almost like they're kind of sticking to, you have your deal, we'll keep you here if you want. But being linked with teams like Bayern Munich is much different than getting bids from Bayern Munich. So I wouldn't be shocked if he stayed, only because like I said, the interest at this point is pretty light. or at least the links are light. So until we see something a little more firm, maybe the random, he's on a plane to Munich right now, that would make me feel a little bit better about a move happening. But these guys are tracked pretty significantly during the summer if there's any sort of move, and there really hasn't been a lot of conversation about really where he would go. So until something's a little firmer, I think he actually stays around Italy.
Yeah, if I was a betting man, and if I had to bet that he was going to move somewhere, it would be to Barcelona, because they have to front load all of their signings now, because they will not be making any signings in the following two transfer windows with their financial fair play sanctions after their appeal is heard. Which let's see how that appeal goes. But I think they appeal just so they can get ready for the two transfer windows that they will not be participating in. So I think if he's going to go anywhere, it will be Barcelona, and it will be for a fee that's probably a little higher than market value, because they know that Barcelona is a little desperate. So
I'm not fully convinced that that ban's going to go through completely. I mean, they've already avoided it once, so let's see what happens. FIFA's got a wonderful way of doing things. So.
Yeah, I think they made a deal with FIFA. Hey, we'll take a banned player if you lower our ban for a little while.
That's right. Two wrongs are making a right, apparently.
Exactly. So we'll stick with Colombia. So James Rodriguez, he currently plays for Monaco, part of the huge expansion of Monaco last year. Him and Falcao over in Monaco. Do you see him moving at all, or is Monaco still on its stance that they are going to be the next big thing out of France after PSG?
If he's leaving, it's going to take a lot, and so that obviously just leaves a few clubs that can pay. I mean, they got him for 60 million euros last year, which they're not going to take less than that to sell him at this point, especially after this World Cup. So, it's either he has made it very clear he wants to go to Real Madrid, and they certainly have the money to do it. But strangely, Falcao also said he wants to leave. So.
Exactly.
There's one thing about collecting a few million euros a year and playing in front of 1,100 fans in Monaco, or playing at Real Madrid. But so he wants to leave. It's going to obviously cost Real Madrid quite a lot to do it. That being said, they have the money to do it. They're also being linked with Toni Kroos right now, who I read today was only going to cost them about £20 million, which seems absolutely absurd to me that he would go for 20 and James Rodriguez could go for more than 60, but you can do the currency conversion however you want there. But so he clearly wants to go. If he leaves, he's going to Real Madrid. Nobody else is really going to grab him. And after coming off a Champions League, I could see them doing it. I'd love to see him there, just because we'd actually get to see him play a little more than the 1,900 people who see him at Monaco.
Yeah. Monaco. It seems like they're a stadium away from being a larger force in the soccer world. But is that stadium being built? I don't think so. So I'm wondering how they can afford all these players with only 1,900, a low number of people who can attend each game. But we'll see. I'm sorry?
Well, if you've ever seen a picture of their stadium, they should really just build one right where it is. It's like an absolutely incredible view right on the water there. But they also have some tax breaks that they're able to take advantage of that may be closing up soon. So if those happen, then they might have to sell, just because they're going to be so much at a disadvantage at a disadvantage that they have to have a level playing field with everybody else.
Exactly.
They might have to sell them and sell Falcao and then start over.
Yeah, exactly. So let's move on to someone who's actually who's in the Premier League currently. He might be loaned out or he might be sold, but we'll start with the two Costa Rica guys that I have on my list are Keylor Navas, the goalkeeper, and Joel Campbell, currently of Arsenal, the striker for Arsenal. What are you hearing, and do you think he has value in the Premier League on Arsenal?
There was some great talk recently, in the last couple of days, that he was added to the first team list on Arsenal's website, which was like, oh, well, they're obviously keeping him because now he's on that page after being loaned out the last few years. He certainly has a place on the team. I'm not sure how much of an impact he's really going to have. He's not going to play in front of a lot of guys that are already there. So it's difficult to see him get the opportunity for growth that he needs. He's obviously very young still. So I wouldn't be surprised if they sent him out again. I'm guessing they just put him on that first team to try to get a few more bidders for him. So I don't see them selling him outright, just because he's such an asset right now. I suppose you could say they're selling high now, but at 21, it's tough to say you're going to sell high and not regret that later on.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to skip to Navas. Did you have something on Campbell you wanted to add, or?
No, nothing on Campbell. Keylor Navas, though, the goalkeeper, plays for Levante currently in La Liga. Is he going to stay there, or is he possibly going to go to Barcelona, or is he going to just move up in the world in another league?
He's another one that I saw linked with Bayern Munich to the point where the club actually announced that they had a deal, and then Bayern Munich came out and said, whoa, we don't have anything yet. It's almost like they blew it by trying to announce it before they got it, which, that's about the worst thing you could do for a deal like this. Going to Bayern Munich, it's nice for his own career, although he's certainly not going to play there. He'll get a few German Cup matches in, but if he really wants to maximize the amount of first-team football he gets, I can't think of a worse place to go than backing up the best goalkeeper in the world.
Yeah, Golden Glove winner Manuel Neuer. Yeah, absolutely. So back up just a little bit. Were you surprised that Tim Howard was left off the Golden Glove list for the World Cup?
I guess. I mean, the U.S. is clearly nowhere near where they are without him. I'm just not sure he's better than the other guys. I thought certainly Navas and Neuer were deserved to be on that list, and I questioned Romero throughout yesterday's match until he made one save on Andre Schürrle's shot that looked like it could have just blasted through a normal person's hands. Yeah. But I thought Howard deserved to be one of the three. So I don't think he deserved to win it. Neuer's sort of on another level than everybody else. So I guess if it made him feel good about being a finalist, that's fine. But that one match he had where 15 saves was 16, and they took one out because he was 6 inches outside of the woodwork there. But he was incredible. The U.S. isn't anywhere close to where they are without him, but he wasn't going to win the award, so I don't know if making him a finalist was going to make anyone feel any better.
Yeah, just I thought I'd squeeze that in there, but I want to finish off this segment though with two guys that are actually have some rumors tied to the Premier League, and they're both strikers. Enner Valencia of Ecuador, he currently plays for Pachuca in Mexico. And then Divock Origi, who is actually training with Liverpool, apparently, from Belgium, and currently under contract with Lille, or came through the Lille system there in France. So Enner Valencia, and Divock Origi. Do you see them actually having jobs in the Premier League anytime soon?
Yeah, I read Valencia is having a medical with West Ham, which is kind of an interesting move, I guess. He'll certainly have the opportunity to play there. It's quite a move from Mexico to England. Not a lot of guys do it. We see Chicharito is obviously the most famous, and frankly, I think he should leave anyway. He's a weird talent that for some reason is perfectly fine playing at random spots for 12 and 20 minutes, and he's got plenty of international clubs looking at him, and he keeps turning them down. I think Valencia would certainly have more playing time at West Ham than Hernandez does at Man U. So I think that's actually a pretty good move for him as long as West Ham gives him playing time that he deserves. It sounds like Origi is actually not going to stay in the Premier League. They'll send him right back to Lille, at least for the season. I heard that that was sort of the clincher of sending him to Liverpool, that they would get him back for a year. He was only 19, so he's got a few years left to groom, although Liverpool's already pretty young with Sturridge and Sterling. So maybe he learns from those guys too. But I wouldn't be surprised if he took a year back in France and then came back in 2015.
Yeah, that's what I've heard with Romelu Lukaku for a couple years now. But it's the same verse, but a couple years later. Right. But hopefully the Origi one is not going to be as botched as Lukaku has been, at least in my opinion, for Chelsea. But I want to flip the script a little bit, and I want to go on the other side, people who have decreased their value in the World Cup. Just touch on a few of them because we're running short on time. But there's a Warren Buffett quote I want to share, be fearful when others are greedy, and be greedy when others are fearful. So in this case, being greedy when others are fearful of these guys who had terrible performances or just bad performances. And I want to start in England because Premier League fantasy is one of the most popular, if not the most popular fantasy league in the world. And I want to start with Leighton Baines and Wayne Rooney, both play for England, Everton and Manchester United respectively. Your thoughts and going forward, especially in the upcoming season?
I think Rooney's sort of exactly where he was. He wasn't really a World Cup star to begin with. He had plenty of pressure on him to pick it up. He scored his one goal. They went out in 2 games, and he'll go back to getting all the crap that he usually does from the English media. I think it doesn't change it at all. I think he's going to have a great year coming up. I think Man U. I mean, everybody will probably agree that Man U is going to be better this year than they were last year. Just now that they have a little more stability, the talent is certainly getting better. I worry about Van Persie staying healthy just because he's Robin Van Persie, but I think Rooney will be fine. Baines was linked to Man U himself much for last year only because of David Moyes. I don't think anyone's really interested in stealing him at this point. He's an excellent fantasy defender. He had a horrible World Cup, as you said, to the point where he probably shouldn't have even been starting. But I think he'll be fine when he gets back in his Everton blues and back in his club.
Yeah, at Manchester United, something I was reading today, they were in on Angel Di Maria, and they missed. Is the Manchester United name slipping a little bit? Do you think, or?
I think it totally slipped until the coaching change, and even then, it's kind of they've brought some guys in, but like you said, it's not really when Arjen Robben says no thanks. To the coach that just led him in the World Cup, you start to question of whether they really want it. Now they're being linked to Arturo Vidal, which would be a great move for them. I'm not sure why he would want to go there personally, but I feel like he's got a pretty good deal down in Juventus. But if they want him, good luck.
Yeah, exactly. And hopefully, selfishly, that Chelsea actually pulls off something with Paul Pogba, which would mean that Vidal stays in Juventus. That'd be a nice double whammy for me. Positive for Chelsea and negative for Manchester United. That would be great. But let's move on to a couple of guys a couple more disappointments, and I want to stay on the same team. I want to stay in Spain. I want to talk about 2 guys: goalkeeper Iker Casillas, and then striker Diego Costa, who Chelsea has just famously signed for £30 million or £32 million, excuse me.
Yeah, Casillas is he had a hard. He really wasn't that great, and he was terrible at the World Cup, and I'm not really sure where he goes from here. Like, they're selling low. If whoever's buying him is buying low, so I guess you have that going for him. But he probably shouldn't have been starting anyway. Not, he's got plenty of name recognition, but I think his best days are behind him.
Yeah. And then Diego Costa. Any thoughts on? Should Chelsea have some buyer's remorse there? I've never been a big fan. Just full disclosure, I think they should have gone after Benteke even with the injury. But Diego Costa, your thoughts going forward for Premier League?
He was obviously an excellent striker in Spain, and scoring's a little higher in Spain than it is in the Premier League. So I wonder how he'll translate. I don't know if he translates as well as Alexis Sanchez does. I promise I'm not saying that as an Arsenal supporter. But he wears his gloves all the time, so he'll be able to keep his gloves there in Chelsea. But he'll obviously start. He'll get plenty of playing time, and I think the combination of he and Fabregas should be good for you. But to think that he's going to score 28, 30 goals again, I think that's a little ambitious. Where does
Fabregas play for you?
Where Oscar was. I think I've never really been a huge Oscar fan. He's very good in spurts, but I think he's overrated for the most part. So I think he fits right in Oscar's spot.
Gotcha. That's why, because some people were touting him as the next holding midfielder, like the David Luiz spot that they were trying to use last year, and I didn't see it because Fabregas doesn't defend. Neither does David Luiz. And let's get right to that actually. So yeah. David Luiz was completely exposed without Thiago Silva. It was very obvious. Him and Dante, who plays with 7 of the guys in Germany, they still couldn't hold back Germany at all. PSG just spent 50 million. Was it pounds or euros? 50 million pounds. Even worse. So 50 million pounds. Good business for Chelsea. Does PSG have buyer's remorse here?
They had to have had it as soon as they spent it, even before the World Cup. Like, there's no way he is worth the highest amount ever paid for a defender. I think he wasn't that great at Chelsea. I think the random free kick goal that, including the one that he had for Brazil, I think that tends to make people think he's a lot better than he is. But he's a defender who doesn't really love to defend, and why would you want to buy that for, especially for 50 million pounds? That I can't imagine why PSG thought that was worth it. I mean, obviously, it's just money to them, but at some point you're going to have financial fair play issues come up, and you're going to look at David Luiz and say, "Boy, we really blew that one."
Yeah. Yeah, they have the most. They set their own record. They topped their own record, so they paid record money to Thiago Silva, and then they did it again for David Luiz to make a pair of Brazilian defenders who probably are not worth the money that they paid for. Maybe Thiago Silva, maybe, but David Luiz is absolutely insane. And I love David Luiz. I think he's a great personality, and I think he's a really good holding midfielder, but he's just not a center back. He's not a center half. And if they put him there, I think it's a huge mistake. But I have three.
I'm not sure why he keeps getting put there. I feel like it's very obvious that he's a holding midfielder, and yet he keeps getting put at center back, and he gets exposed over and over, and yet next game there he is, right back there.
Yeah, and like I said, and I've said this many, many, many times before about David Luiz. He's a really good holding midfielder. He has size. He has speed. He can defend well. He can defend good enough for a defensive midfielder, but not for a center half. He just can't do it. He can't do the job consistently. He mentally turns off. So he needs to be a little bit further up the pitch. And he'd rather be there anyway, as evident by, anytime someone scored a goal, what was the first thing that happened afterwards? David Luiz ran all the way up the pitch with the ball. Mm-hmm. It was just, you can just expect it to happen. But I want to stick with Brazil here, and there were so many players that I could pick out for Brazil that had terrible performances. Basically, anyone who played past the mid, actually pretty much everywhere. But it was pretty much everybody. But a lot of the blame fell to Fred, to Joe, who, for fantasy sakes, are completely insignificant. Yep. So I wanted to go to Hulk, who's had rumors, here and there about moving away from Zenit St. Petersburg. Someone who I personally think could be a very dominant force on the wing on a good team, but he really blew it at the World Cup, and I was really disappointed. So, what do you think? What are your thoughts on Hulk as a prospect for anyone who's interested?
I think there was, I read recently that somebody made a comment that if his name was anything but Hulk, we wouldn't even talk about him. And I think there's some truth in that. Obviously, it helps because we can remember it, and the guy is built like a truck. But I think you said it. He was so incredibly disappointing in Brazil that you almost wonder what's going on. Can he be that player that we all think he could be? Just like you said, out on the wing on a very good team. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure that's there anymore. He was basically shut down by, if we're going to talk about the Premier League, because I think you've said a while that you'd love to see him at Chelsea. If he can be shut down, in an international tournament, and more defensive league like the Premier League, it's obviously not Italy, but it's a little tougher to score than it is usually in the World Cup, I guess. As long as you're not playing a CONCACAF team. Yeah, exactly. But I don't know. I used to be very much a believer, and I guess I've fallen out of favor after what I saw in Brazil.
Yeah. So actually, there's one more player I want to talk about, and then we'll get to our closing thoughts on the World Cup. But one last player I want to talk about. He got a red card pretty famously against Germany. Pepe, center back from Portugal, also for Real Madrid. Is this someone who also may be moving? You've seen rumors here and there, but nothing really sticking. Is he someone who he's getting older, losing value, or is he someone who's just going to stick and stay where he was?
I think he's probably going to stay. I wonder how many teams want to deal with that headache. I say that as Barcelona just takes Luis Suarez, but I think Suarez has a lot more to offer than Pepe does. I think they'd be hard-pressed to find somebody willing to pay much of anything to get him at this point. That red card was just absolutely absurd. I mean, we always knew he was a little bit of a hothead, but in that situation at the World Cup, there has to be a thought in your head of, maybe I shouldn't do this. And I sort of had the same first reaction that he did when Thomas Mueller pretended like he basically slapped him in the face 6 times and went to the ground. That he was definitely flopping, and I sort of brought that up on Twitter a few times during the tournament about Mueller. But I just don't know how you react like that in that situation. And the game totally changed after that. Portugal basically knocked themselves out of the tournament right at that red card because getting absolutely smashed by Germany, took him out from goal differential, and it basically was his fault.
Yeah, and he also missed the U.S. game, so I mean, some of the defensive lapses probably would not have happened if he wasn't there.
Yeah,
So, or he was there. Yeah,
or he just would have gotten the red card in that match.
yeah. Who knows? Who knows? But before we go, I just want to get your closing thoughts on the World Cup.
It was an absolute blast. Mario Götze, that's what we're gonna pronounce it. I still struggle with these names. The more I,
It's
the more.
the umlaut throws everyone off.
But his goal actually tied the record for the highest scoring World Cup ever, which couldn't have come at a better time for soccer in America, where I think most of our readers come from. So we kind of tend to focus our coverage there. But I think American soccer is growing. I worry about how many declarations there are about soccer in America that I've read over the World Cup, because the next 3 years are very empty of a World Cup.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many people can attach to a team for Euro 2016. Copa Libertadores is coming as well, but I don't know how many people are ready to support the U.S. team outside of the World Cup. You're certainly not going to see 22 million people watch a Gold Cup match. So, I hope it grows. Soccer, even, we have the Premier League, we have Serie A, La Liga, Bundesliga, all on readily available television now. So I think the World Cup did a great job of being able to make people notice that soccer is available here. I think Germany were the rightful winners. They were the best team throughout the tournament. It was as simple as that. I think a lot of people were surprised that, not surprised that Argentina made it to the final, but they didn't really play as well as everybody thought they were. I think we saw Messi and Aguero and Higuain and thought they would just blow everybody out, and they had so many 1-0s or going through penalties that throughout the tournament we had no idea what to expect from the next game. But the Germans were pretty solid throughout, and worthy champs.
Yep, totally agree on the right team won. And my closing thought is the star players were able to be star players in this World Cup more than most others. All the star players, Messi, Neymar, Thomas Mueller, who's becoming more of a household name, they were all given their licenses to roam, and they performed greatly. They performed admirably, as well as they possibly could have. And it goes to show that stars are really important, and that's something that if we're going to drive soccer in this country, there needs to be more stars, and the star culture needs to be just cherished here more. So we're starting to see, Frank Lampard will be coming for NYCFC. Xavi may be coming back for the New York Red Bulls. Those are the star cultures, and if they're treated right and they play well, that can help grow the game domestically, even though there's no domestic stars. What needs to happen in this country for soccer to be prominent is that the best athletes growing up need to play the sport from a very young age. And what soccer has going for it is that it's very inexpensive to play. So the working class can very easily get into this sport. All you need is a makeshift ball and a makeshift field and some shoes, maybe, and then you're ready to go. So if that culture can pick up and really gain some momentum in the youth today, I don't think that there's anything stopping us from winning a World Cup, possibly, actually, if the U.S. wins the bid for 2026, if they bid and win, that would be the perfect timing for it to be in America, because I think that would be the next generation of players coming through. And it's really exciting. If U.S. gets given a World Cup, I really do think that will be the momentum that carries it over the top, that athletes will play soccer going forward. And hopefully
let's not rule out 2022.
Yeah, well, I don't want to get too much into the controversy talk this just yet. But 2022 at the earliest, 2026 at the latest. That would be great. But yeah, and on that note, we're going to sign off here. Look for us again on Friday, where we actually do a real Premier League preview talk. That's scheduled for Friday sometime in the afternoon, most likely. The more ironed out details will be given on Twitter, on my Twitter at SportsByGotti, and at Laird's Twitter at RotoWire Andrew. And you can sign up for a free trial at RotoWire for all of the soccer happenings. All the latest player news, transfer rumors are at rotowire.com/trial. There's a special tab at the top for soccer. So head on over, see what we have to say. We're actually really good at what we do, we promise. But if you guys have any other questions, don't hesitate to ask in response to this video or on our Twitter handles. We're more than happy to answer any questions. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a great day.